detects Smurls in the house. He hears something from upstairs, and at first it didn't feel out of place because, well, houses, they make noise. But then it happened again. Same part of the house, same kind of sound, and this time it got his attention enough that he actually pauses for a second. He heads upstairs, not in a rush, just to assume that once he gets there, he'll be able to figure out what the sound is. But once he gets to the top of the stairs, nothing's out of place. Nothing that should explain the noises that he just heard.
This time he checks in more detail than before, and still comes up with nothing. It happens a few times, and after a while he just can't shake that feeling, even when he's hearing nothing at all. You see, the unknown doesn't sit well with people. Eventually that feeling of unease can grow into a sense of vague danger, and that's the part that just doesn't go away. Welcome to Deceptive Reality.
So, Nick, we covered The Conjuring House probably, a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of interest. A lot of people were super curious about what was happening with The Conjuring House, and we brought up some stuff that some people didn't know, and here we are, the Smurl's house. We're going to be talking about the Smurls this week. Honestly, we both know is another one of the Conjuring series. It was actually the last movie that was out. Did you know anything about this haunting before we did any kind of research?
I had heard a little bit here and there. I mean, it really catches the eye. The last name's fun to say, Smurl.
Smurl. That's right.
Smurl.
Sounds like a troubling name. Like they're a little
it
gritty.
Does.
They get gritty.
One sure to be haunted. One sure to be haunted, I think.
Facts. You know, it's always interesting because you and I, we've had an experience. We did an investigation last year, and we're going to talk about some of that because I think some of that applies to this actual case. And,
oh, yeah, definitely.
And it was super interesting because even when we did the Wildwood, now Nick and I was together for the Wildwood. I did the Hinsdale house myself the day before, but Nick and I was at the Wildwood Sanitarium. And, the first thing I always ask is, hey, do we know what caused this thing to be haunted? Or do we know when it started to be haunted? Or do we know the backstory? We all want to know the backstory because I think that's the part that everyone wants to know. Now, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, if you've watched other YouTubers talk about this case, in which I've watched a lot of them,
same here.
they're not giving accurate information. So you're probably going to say, Bert, where are you getting your information from? The interview has done, or the couple had done a series of interviews, one with Lorraine Warren that I watched. So Lorraine was talking to the two of them, and they were explaining everything that happened. Now, that being said, I am going to talk about some things that may not have been in the interview that potentially other people has talked about or things that I've seen on the internet. But I'm going to let you know, hey, this isn't substantiated, but this is what I've heard. But the things that is substantiated, we're going to talk about those pretty in depth. So if you've seen things from other YouTubers before, don't take it as a gospel, because when I actually found the interviews and I watched the interviews, there was a lot of stuff that was wrong.
Yeah, you're actually specifically going to hear some contradictions. One in particular that I found as well.
Yes.
Is oppositely reported in almost every video that I watched to catch myself up on this.
I was surprised that some YouTubers had the names of the people wrong. We're not talking about, hey, they called this guy Janet and his name was,
right.
Her name was, Sally. Like, we're talking like they said that this child had this thing to happen. It wasn't even that child at all. It's a completely different child. But anyway, I don't want to get you guys too into the weeds. We're going to start from the very beginning. Now, the story starts with the Smurls because they needed a new place, right? Kind of like when we talked about the Wildwood. It's like, what caused this place to be haunted? So the assumption is we're going straight to a haunted house, boys and girls. Clearly it wasn't, anything but haunted before they got there, because that's what we assume. Or maybe they haunted it themselves. But they was looking for a house because there was a Hurricane Agnes. And unfortunately, the flooding, it changed their entire living situation. They had to move. They didn't have a choice. And they ran into a place, a little duplex on Chase Street. And for them, kind of made sense. Now, all the other YouTubers is going to probably tell you, I think the bulk of all the YouTubers that I watch, they're going to say that the grandparents, the maternal and paternal grandparents, John and Mary, they moved into the duplex first and they told him, hey, I got a good idea. We're going to sell you the other part of the duplex at a discounted price and yada, yada. That did not happen. So the first two to move in was actually Jack and Janet. So that part, unfortunately, is untrue. Now, when they moved in October of 1973. That date's going to be extremely important. You're going to want to put a little pin in that. Boop, pin. October 1973. Now, John and Mary, which was Jack's parents, they moved into the other side on December of 1973. So only 3 months later. And the interesting part about this, Nick, now, again, this is not a substantiated claim. When you think of a haunted house, just based on what we've been told, what's all the ways that you can believe that a house is haunted?
Oof. You mean like the origin of it, or
just period? Like if you hear a place is haunted, like what do you assume probably happened to get it haunted?
Well, my thought always immediately goes to, because I'm such a big fan of Poltergeist, that was built on a native burial ground.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Or something tragic happened in the house. Some great evil deed was performed there. Maybe a cult of some kind.
Yep.
I mean, outside of haunting, we could have demonic stuff that was happening there. Possessed items, that kind of thing like that. There's a lot of different reasons if we're talking haunting, and I think I know what you're going to get at, so I won't spoil the other reason.
I have a few different theories on this one. I actually haven't landed on one theory, and I think there's going to be a lot of people's going to be a little ticked off at the end of this when I kind of explain my thought process, because they're going to be like, really, this is where you're going with that? But yes, that's where I'm going to be going with this, just for the record. But the house already had a reputation. Now, this is not something that was in the interview. This is something that I read somewhere else. But before the Smurls even got there, the duplex was already in a little bit of local rumors. So we're talking about stories.
I did not know this.
Yeah. So there was already stories that was already floating around, supposedly. Now, again, this is from some place that I read. And what basically the neighbors was saying was that when they would walk by the location, they would occasionally see something in the windows. And there was also rumor, whether it's true or not, that there was potentially witchcraft that was occurring within the area. And a lot of people said the place had a bad vibe by default. Now, that's not, like I said, in Lorraine's interview with them, it wasn't in the other interview, but I don't know. The place where I read it, I'm like, if anything, the story of the house was already out there. There was some sort of a folklore with, and it's kind of like when you're a kid, right? I think everyone, when they're a kid, when they live in a neighborhood, there's that one house, right?
Yeah, that creepy house that everyone avoids, and you can't get your ball if you kick it in the yard.
Exactly. Or at Halloween, kind of they're like, I double dog dare you to walk up to the house and knock on the door. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just to go back a little, did anyone mention what they thought they saw in the windows?
They never knew. So a prime example, they would see something move past it, but they could never figure out exactly what it was. And that's what made it so interesting, because there was times when people was not supposed to be there. Again, put a pin in that. Boop, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit later too. Like I say, there's some stories that's not came out that you guys are going to, I think, be a little excited by. So listen, if there's a podcast you're going to leave to, and I'm going to do my best to try to keep this at an hour, but there's going to be a lot of stuff I have to take out, and there's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to rush past, but man, there's going to be some crazy, let's put it this way. There's going to be a phone call that we're going to talk about between a neighbor and a ghost. So that's coming up, folks.
Yeah. You know, those phone calls always spook me out when we have them in different videos. Yeah.
Heck yeah. That's the spookiest part. We're going to talk about, actually, let's jump into one of them right now. The area, do you know anything about that area that this house is in, Nick?
Not a bit. Not a bit.
So it's West Pittston. And the interesting thing about that is in Pennsylvania, that was originally a coal region. So they were mining coal out of that area.
And a lot of dangerous stuff happens with mines if I go back to what you asked me earlier,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain towns. We have ghost towns for mining communities, and
Yes.
we had the great big West Ray disaster in a coal mine in Nova Scotia, and that's produced a lot of haunting tales as well.
Correct. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind
Hmm.
of going to play into this. There was a huge tragedy that happened. They were doing deep mine for this coal in those coal mines that was right around, we're talking within the proximity of this house. Now, what happened was there was a series of men, it was 7 men that was down in the mine, and the mine flooded, and all 7 men perished in that mine.
That's an awful way to go.
Awful way to go. Um, so the interesting part of that is due to that flooding, there was also some instability that was happening with the entire neighborhood. So there was actually houses within that neighborhood that was collapsing. And when they would
Mm.
collapse, they was able to run into a few things that didn't necessarily make sense. Now, this was actually in the interview also. Lorraine and Jack had talked about this and how basically one of the earliest houses on the street in that area around it, it had been way more opened up. And the interesting thing they found is in some of those houses, some of the rumors that was occurring, again, we're going back to the rumor mill just a little bit, they was finding unbelievable amount of pig bones.
Of pig bones. This must be where the witchcraft stuff came in.
You know, I thought that too, but again, I've got a theory. I don't know that the theory is correct. But again, put a pin in pig
We
bones.
got 3 pins already.
3 pins already, because we're going to be coming back to this in two very interesting parts of the story. And one of them is around these pig bones. And I think it's not, if people's heard this story, I don't think we're going to talk about the same thing here. But this area was extremely interesting. Now, what a lot of skeptics will say was, okay, well, the town was already flooded and it wasn't super stable. These houses was already collapsing. So a lot of the noises that would have been in the house could have potentially been caused by just the house settling in a very loosey-goosey way that the land was kind of moving already, if that makes sense.
That's a very common things people say
Yes.
when they investigate hauntings is houses settling, foundations unstable,
Right.
all that jazz.
I think if you're a skeptic, and this is nothing against skeptics, I'm skeptical myself to a degree.
Oh yeah, same.
I feel like there's a checklist. It's like, yep, foundation, stairways creaky because of foundation.
Yeah. Swamp gas owls.
1,000%. Like, I think that's part of the
Yeah.
checklist. Now, this is something that was in the interview that I did not know, and no YouTuber that I have seen has talked about this. So Jack and Janet obviously moved into this house. Before Chase Street, Jack had lived in a house that was almost identical to this house.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that was where he had his very first paranormal experience in his entire life.
Oh yeah, I've definitely not heard about this.
Yeah, so as a boy, he saw 2 pairs of eyes near a stairway. And this is going to become a very common theme in the future. When he saw him, he got scared and he ran to his sister, and he could not wake his sister up.
That just adds to the fear.
Yes. Now, you're probably saying, what do you mean you're going to hear about this in the future? In the future, this entire case that we're going to be talking about, for whatever reason, the story goes that one person will be asleep and a horrific thing will happen. And another time, this person will be awake and the other person will have a horrific thing occur. So this is something that happened in Jack's childhood that foreshadowed this entire haunting all these years later. Now, he was 9 when this happened. So, we're talking, 20 years later, roughly.
It must have really stuck with him if he's remembering it
and here's the
retelling it later.
No paranormal activity between the age of 9 and when these hauntings occurred. None. So this new house, he said it felt very strangely familiar. So for him, the house that he grew up in as a child and the house that he now lives in, He said it had a very similar type of layout. It had the same kind of rooms. It was the same duplex structure.
Mhm.
Basically, it was almost like he was moving back into the house of his childhood to a degree.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild, and it's kind of what I call a little bit of foreshadowing, and there's going to be a little bit to that. Now, another uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Unsubstantiated.
Unsettling or unsubstantiated, sorry.
Yeah, the claim was that one of the earliest weird things that occurred, because you have to remember this house was having all kinds of problems in the beginning. It was having wiring problems, it was having all kinds of piping issues. There was all kinds of things that they were trying to get. Supposedly, and again, I read it, so I can't substantiate it, but they had brought a rug in or possibly a carpet into the house. And when
Mhm.
they opened it up, there was a stain right in the middle of the carpet.
Oh, really? So this wasn't a new carpet then, was it?
Well, it was new to them. So the
Oh,
thing
okay.
didn't say, they said it was a new carpet. So, some people
Mm.
say, well, I got a new car and they bought a used car that's,
Yeah.
10,000 miles.
Yeah.
So maybe it was new to them. Maybe it was brand new. But either way, they took it home, they unrolled it, and there's a big old stain right in the middle of the carpet.
A red stain?
No, it was not red. I did check
Oh,
that.
okay, because I'm thinking cursed items, like I said
Right.
earlier, but all right.
Again, I don't think we're far off on this, Nick. So
Okay.
they clean this rug or this carpet, whatever it is, and they put it back out. Everything's good. It's completely clean. Couple days later, stain back in the middle of the carpet in the same exact spot.
Ah, this is just like that old, like one of the first ghost stories, the Canterbury Tales,
Yes, exactly.
where the stain, no matter how many times they clean it up, keeps reappearing.
Exactly. That's exactly the same
Mm.
thing I thought. Now, again, I read this. I don't know if it's true, but there was a whole lot of little things that was happening in the house anyway. I mean, the house had
Mm.
problems. There was leaks, plumbing trouble. There was odd breaks down. There was even an interesting story where Jack was sitting, I think they said in the front room. He had the TV on. He's watching some TV, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden, boom, caught on fire.
The TV, I hope.
The entire TV caught on fire, started
Oh,
smoking.
okay.
Everything started going a little bit crazy. Yeah. Jack did not catch on fire. It was
I don't know where my mind was. I was just picturing he burst into flames. I'm like, oh, that is clearly supernatural.
spontaneous combustion, Nick. That's also in this story. No.
In the end of the story.
No, the TV spontaneously busted into flames. And that's going to be important for a little bit future part of the story also. But
Pin number 4.
pin number 4, there's a lot of stuff. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of, and I think I told you all the times, Nick, whenever
Mhm.
I'm looking at a haunting, I'm looking for things that happen in repetition, right? Like if something happens
Mm.
once, I go, wow, that's kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
it could be anything. We did prime example, the Wildwood. We did the same thing at the Wildwood.
Yeah.
One thing would happen, and I go, like, that's weird. Like,
Mhm.
maybe, maybe not. But then if it would happen again, I'd go, okay, well, once is cool. 2 is like, okay,
Right.
there's something to this. The biggest thing I think for you and I,
Mhm.
remember when we started doing the bell and then it
Yeah.
would respond to the bell? And I'm like, the first time it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, that's cool. But then the next thing that would happen is our machine started going off that was near the bell. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, like what's the odds that both of these things would happen in
Yeah,
such
you got
close
to
proximity?
cross-reference things.
Right.
In fact, we eliminated a lot of things by cross-referencing on different
Correct.
cameras and different recording devices as well. So it works
Correct.
both ways.
Correct. And I think that's a good skeptical way of doing it. Like if something
Mm.
happens once, hey, that's kind of cool. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We don't know. But even the family was starting to kind of make little check marks of, oh, okay, well,
Mm.
this weird thing's happening. The other things that they had mentioned, and I'm really putting this haunting on 2 different levels. I'm going to say everything that happened before one big encounter. And I'm going to let you know when that big encounter starts. I don't want to tell you what it is.
Mm.
Anyone that doesn't know the story is going to be like, whoa. But there's what I call the before the major hauntings and, the
Mm.
thing. But before there was like typical sounds, like you would hear things. And again, it goes back to well, the house is settling, there's something like this. Now, a very interesting thing, because I think a lot of people, whenever, especially from a skeptical point of view, myself included, by the way, I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong, but a lot of things that a lot of people say when they're skeptical of something, especially a case like this, is they go, okay, what's their motive?
Right.
Like, okay, you're
Well, that's how you
haunted.
solve any crime, really.
Correct, right? And that's exactly right. Like you watch the first 48, it's like, okay, what's the motive in of
Right.
this person's alibi or whatever? It's the same
Yeah.
thing with hauntings, right? What would their alibi be? Why would they want to do, or not alibi, but what's their motive? Like,
The
why would they be
motive,
doing
yeah.
this thing, right? And
Right.
how well do you know this family and their establishment in this city, Nick? Did you research that part?
Not really. I thought they were new to the city, so they didn't really
Well,
have much establishing thing.
they was when they moved in, but you got to remember they
Right.
had girls there, and then they lived there for a long time before anything really happened.
Well, that's an interesting thing that we've not brought up yet. It was a long time.
Yes. Things were happening before, which is kind of some of the things that I'm covering now.
Yeah.
Like there were little small sounds and stuff, but there was nothing like violent or overly aggressive.
Right.
And
that's the trickle from the crack in the dam before it breaks, I guess.
100%. 100%.
But to your point, they probably made friends in the community in that large amount of time.
It was bigger than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jack had set up the softball team for the girls in the town.
Oh, okay.
They were a major part of the church in that town, which again, put a pin in that. Boop. We're going to be pinned up by the time this thing's done.
Well, I guess it's going to be nothing but pins here.
Luckily, I got a whole container of pins, boys and girls.
Oh, we're ready.
But he had established that softball team for the girls. So he was like a major part of the city. So was Janet. Janet was a huge part of the town. He had worked for the same place for 20 years. Financially, they were doing okay. But the problem with this house is, I think another thing that everyone always says is, well, if you move into a place and it's haunted, just move out. And it's like, that's not always that easy. Exactly. We mentioned the house already had some things that was going on with it, right? Plumbing issues, electrical issues. They were paying for the house. There's a big old duplex that they was paying for. Money ran tight. And on top of it, they had kids. I mean, they had 3 girls before the twins was born.
Yeah, and you don't want to immediately uproot your whole family. And there's a such thing as being house poor. Like you could be making good money, but a lot of it goes into your mortgage and repairs. Like you can't move on a turn of a dime.
Correct. It's expensive. And I think a lot of people just, it's easy to say, hey, why didn't they just move out? But anyone that's got a family, it's not always that easy. You need money. It would be
impossible now.
Oh yeah, nowadays.
Because I think I told you before, when I moved in, when I rented my current place, I saw people on Facebook and around looking for a place to rent who were still looking a year later.
Right, exactly. It's a big thing, but they're locked into this house at this point. And honestly, like all these little things that's happening can all be kind of explained away in the beginning. So the noises, the thing that's happening, the TV catching on fire could have just been electrical, the plumbing, the wetness, the stain on that rug. These are all things you can go, it's weird, but it's not paranormal,
Right.
There was one event that happened. This is before the major event. But Dawn had said that she saw people floating in her room.
Now that's easy to write off as a kid's imagination too, or a dream.
Right. And, it's like you said, kids say the darndest things sometimes. There used to be a show called that, Kids Say the Darndest Thing. And it's not necessarily wrong in this case. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where you go, I'm sure you did, right? My kids tell me stuff and I go, oh, okay, yeah. My youngest told me the other day, I think it was yesterday. She told me that, why can't I think of this guy's name? Anyway, visited her school. Jesus has visited her school also, which is impressive because When he
Wow.
came back, I didn't think he'd be going to the daycare center. I'm just putting that out there.
Well, he was keeping it low key this time around.
He was. I'm like,
Well,
dang.
considering what happened to him last time.
Well, it's probably a good thing to go to school. I can't necessarily blame him on that one.
Right.
But, there was nothing that's really there. And again, you could kind of say, well, my kid's got an overactive imagination. It's kind of a weird things. But then the house started doing a few things that started sounding a little wrong. Okay.
I was just thinking, imagine when the big event does happen, you think back about what they said, then you're real scared.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And trust me, when we get to the big thing's really going to happen in 1985. So do you remember when I told you to put the pin in that date, Nick? Do you remember when I said?
I don't.
October of 73. So
right.
October of 73, all the way until this big event. And we're almost there. But before we get there, the house is starting to have these things that's starting to happen. Like, it sounds dumb, but they're starting to notice like little footsteps going up the stairs. And then people would go investigate. Like our intro talked about Jack. He hears these footsteps and he's looking around. He's like, what in the world is that sound? And then he would go up there and everything would be in its place. There was no rhyme or reason for these things occurring.
Right.
But then you start going, okay, was it just my imagination? Maybe I thought I heard something that I didn't really hear. So he just kind of moved on. But in addition to that, other people in the household started noticing these things. And now they're starting to compare notes a little bit. And they're going, oh, wait a second. You heard that too? Okay. And then they would all go upstairs, assuming they were going to find something, and there would be nothing there. Another weird thing, and again, not necessarily paranormal, sometimes the toilets would flush on their own.
That's a little harder to explain away, in my opinion, though.
Sometimes, the only reason why I say supposedly,
right?
I've had a toilet that's ran, so the thing didn't go all the way down, the little, whatever they call that thing that's inside the tubbing unit, but it didn't go all the way down, and water fills up and then it flushes itself because it's got a surplus of water.
Okay.
So maybe that was happening, right? Like if that happened in my house, I wouldn't be like, I bet a ghost just pooped up in the toilet and just flushed. Like I'm not assuming that by default. Right. I'm assuming.
No, but on the other hand, I'd check it out because that can get expensive.
For sure. 100%. Right. Like if it's flushing on its own, like that gets real expensive real quick.
Yeah. And that's real easy to diagnose too.
Yes and no. Like sometimes that thing will go up and then go back down perfectly. Sometimes it doesn't. But if you're not paying attention, you're rushing out of the bathroom. Sometimes you don't even notice. I've done that.
Right.
Now, the thing where things get a little bit more kind of weird is they started hearing what they thought was banging in the wall. Now, we've heard this part in a lot of hauntings in the past, Nick. We've talked about it with Jeff the Mongoose.
Yeah.
Talked about with Infield Poltergeist.
Yeah, that's the one I think about immediately.
That's usually for me too, but I know in Jeff the Mongoose, I know it was definitely in that one too. There was a haunting that we covered. What was that other one? Roland Doe.
Yeah, the real exorcist story.
Yes, that one had banging on the wall too. So it's like, that is in almost every single haunting. Now, some people could say, well, of course they're going to say there was banging on the wall. That's what every haunting says it has. And it's like, perhaps, but.
Yeah, fair enough. But that doesn't mean it's not a sign of haunting. That's
exactly.
more, it is a sign of a haunting.
Exactly. So again, I look for patterns in things. Now, the twins arrive, which was Shannon and Karen in 1977. So again, they moved in 73, November of 73. So this would have been 4 years later, and they're already having some activity that's happening inside the house. And that's going to continue all the way until April 29th of 1985. So we've made it to the big event that kind of escalates this entire haunting. So this is now what's interesting is YouTubers are not getting the child's name right. So it's Heather's confirmation day, April 29th of 1985. They're all in the kitchen and Heather and Shannon was there and they had this ceiling light. Now this ceiling light, A lot of people say it's a chandelier. It wasn't a chandelier. It was just a very big ceiling light. I believe they
Mm-hmm.
said it was 4 foot wide, or the dimension was 4 foot. And what happened was this light assembly fell. And when it fell, it hit the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hit the kitchen table, it also hit Shannon right in the forehead and gouged a spot into her head.
Yikes.
It bounced off of the table when it hit and then hit the refrigerator.
Okay.
So there was a lot of damage that was done with that. Now, the reason that a lot of people goes, well, that's like, why is that the momentous occasion? So the father, not the father, but we're talking about the grandfather in this case, which
Right.
his name is John. John, when he started looking at this light assembly and Jack was in there and they're trying to figure out, like, how did this fall? Like, we know the house has some things that needs to be fixed, but like a light falling, that's odd. And what they said was, and again, this was just their opinion, it didn't look like it was from wear and tear or a ceiling issue. It looked like it had been ripped from the ceiling.
That is spooky.
Little spooky.
Can I talk a little bit about why this was a very interesting coincidence if we're talking about angry spirits or demonic forces?
That's exactly what I was going to ask you to do, because you and I talked about this, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, so we didn't know too much about this.
Because we're not Catholic, Dick.
We're not Catholic. I'm not anything.
Right.
And Bert's not Catholic, but I didn't know exactly what a confirmation was, and it seems like it would be just the perfect time for some kind of evil force to attack, because Catholics do baptism, which I also was not aware. But that is only the first part of the covenant. To seal the covenant when children become of thinking age or deciding age, they choose whether they are going to complete the covenant with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the day that Heather was supposed to do that.
Which is kind of spooky when you think about it.
Yeah, it didn't make whatever is there happy, it seems.
Correct. Now, there's another case that or another part in this entire case that doesn't really come up a whole lot. I was a little shocked by this because I thought this was a big part once I heard the interview. The very next day, so this one major event happens, very scary. The very next day, Janet is downstairs in the basement doing laundry. And while she's standing there, she hears, Janet. Janet. And it sounded just like her sister. She turned around, her sister's not there. So her first assumption is, well, clearly my sister's doing some type of a prank on me. So she runs upstairs. She's looking for her sister, assuming her sister's there. Sister's not in the house. Put a pin in this because we're going to talk about something very similar a little bit later. But to those of us like myself, the moment I hear that, mimic. That's a mimic activity.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And it's typically by voice. It's typically, and what the thought process is for anyone that doesn't understand mimics, I did an entire podcast on my channel. The theory is a lot of mimics will mimic someone else's voice to get them to go somewhere that they want them to go.
Right.
So think of like a kid, right? You have your child, you're in a different room, you hear your kids scream. You're, as a parent, you're going to run to that room to try to help them. What if it's not your child? And what if it was something luring you? Much like we talked about, I think in our Bigfoot episode not that long ago, right? It's a predatory thing. That's a predator. That's what a mimic is.
Actually, in our last episode, the knot deer has started mimicking people.
Yes, 100%. Same thing.
And there's tons of folklore, like Irish, Scottish folklore, where babies would cry in the swamps or the bogs.
Yes.
Or they have women calling for help to lure people out there where they meet their fate.
Exactly. So it's kind of one of those things where you go, okay, like, is this so? The thing I really want you to take away from that is in that moment, that was in my opinion, a very predatory thing to do. It was trying to get her to go somewhere. And the question is, okay, can I do this to the point to where she thinks it's someone else to get her to go where I want her to go?
Now, wasn't it Janet that also got cut by the ceiling?
It was the daughter.
Oh, which one? Oh, it
Janice
was
the
the
mom.
daughter. Okay.
Yeah, so the
Oh,
daughter
okay.
was
Yeah.
Heather. So Heather
Oh,
got
wait, it
cut
was
by.
Heather's confirmation, but didn't Janet get cut by the falling thing?
Nope. Nope.
Ah, okay. I got it wrong.
Let me double check that. Make sure I'm not saying
Oh,
something
no,
wrong.
we're both wrong. It's Shannon.
Shannon.
I
I'm sorry.
think.
It was Shannon. So it was Heather's
Yes, okay.
confirmation. Janet was in the room ironing the dress, which was a white dress.
Yeah.
That's
And then
customary.
Shannon was cut.
And Shannon's forehead was cut. Now, Shannon,
Okay, got
unfortunately,
it.
it's not her first time, not her first rodeo we're going to find in the story. That was just the first thing major.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, she's had some bad stuff happen. We'll just put it that way. Now, another thing to mention is the house had a lot of little small imperfections, right? It was a fixer-upper. It wasn't perfect when they moved in. They knew that that was going to be the case. There was a lot of things that was happening inside the house that didn't make a lot of sense. One of them would be that the lamp would oftentimes turn itself on and off on its own. The doors would be found unlocked and shoved wide open when they knew
Like
that
the outside doors?
everything. Inside doors,
wow.
outside doors.
Okay.
Now, 80% of the activity per the interview from Jack and Janet was 80% was upstairs. So 80% of it was
Okay.
upstairs. But there was no circumference in where it stayed, if that makes sense. And this really, when you're humans, we talk about dogs and stuff like that all the time, right? Like we believe that dogs have this sixth sense, or at least I do. I'm not saying everyone does, but
No, I believe that too.
they had a dog named Simon. And the interesting thing about Simon was a German Shepherd. When we talk about dogs, I kind of put that up there as hey, this is a pretty smart dog. Like they kind of, they have it together. And Simon, he had this thing where he was very protective, especially of Janet.
Right.
And the interesting thing is Simon would try to protect Janet when things were happening that was out of Janet's control. But the interesting thing is, from time to time, they would leave Simon inside the house. They would go somewhere, and when they would come back, Simon would be outside the house.
Oh, interesting.
There'd be other times that Simon would be outside the house. They would come back. Simon would be inside the house. So whatever this is telling us that, I'm going to do what I want to do when it's my house, quote unquote, its house. But also I should mention that Jack said that, like I said, 80% of it was upstairs in the, the hallways and stuff like that. But it was especially happening. So the bulk of everything was in the master bedroom, but also the bathrooms.
Okay.
Now, when you think about the bedroom and the bathroom, what do you think of the most?
Like in terms of hauntings and that kind of thing, or home accidents, or
like when you, I don't know if there's an easy way for me to explain it. Would you say you're more vulnerable or less vulnerable in those places?
Oh, way more vulnerable.
Right? You're in your bedroom.
Both those places. You're either sleeping, maybe you're in the shower in the bathroom, or on the toilet, or looking in the mirror instead of around you.
Correct. Now we're getting somewhere. So I find it interesting that the two places that the bulk of the activity was occurring was in the master bedroom, the place where people change, places where people sleep, the bathroom when people's typically using the restroom, taking a shower. Those are the two hot spots of the activity.
Right.
And that's per Jack. In the master bedroom, there was a closet door. And they said that there was a ton of visual manifestations that was occurring at that closet door. We're going to tell a few stories today where that was not uncommon for them to see something going in or out of.
Yeah, visual manifestations are my particular interest when I come to these things. Like, I want to see something and I want to hear stories of what people have seen. So I'm on board for this.
Well, I'm going to tell you when I tell you this, and we're messing with some new video stuff. We're going to see. Maybe I might piece some things together. We'll see. Depends on how I'm feeling, right? But there's some visual interpretations today, and some of it, like I said, some of it I have to keep out. Some of it got to be a little bit selective in how I say it, but there's some visual stuff where you're
Right.
like, oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, this story has parts that get particularly violent and offensive,
Let's
that we're just not going to be able to stress.
let's put it this way. We got out of YouTube jail. I'm not looking to go back into YouTube jail. So
Right.
if that's any indication, but we'll hint around. I'll give you enough hints to where you'll figure it out. The other thing that they mentioned quite often, and this was a lot on the interview, I don't know that I heard a lot of YouTubers talk about it. They often said that knocks would come in series of threes. So Janet would
Hmm.
say there would be 3 knocks on the door. A very interesting thing that I didn't hear anybody say. And by the door, I
Hmm.
mean the front door.
Right.
So on the front door, knock, knock, knock. Uh, if you're going to make something up, sometimes I don't think that if I was making something up, I'd make up something weird. Uh, they would often hear the commode get knocked on 3 times.
Oh, that is interesting.
It's a very weird thing for them to say they would hear. And the reason they said it was because of the porcelain. It has a very
Right.
specific sound.
Yeah.
So they would hear that and they would go, that is either a sink or a toilet.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, but 3 knocks is considered a massive faux pas around here.
Yes.
No one will answer their door to 3 knocks because we
Mhm.
have, and I don't know if this is a common term, but something called a forerunner. Have you ever heard of that?
Uh-uh.
So a forerunner was a specific type of ghost that is the ghost of yourself
Oh,
or someone you know
like a
that is
doppelganger?
still living. Yeah, kind of like that,
Mhm.
but they foretell the death of whoever it is of. And 3 knocks on the door was one where you'd hear the 3 knocks and you'd open up and you'd either see yourself or a loved one,
Mhm.
and then they disappear, and then that person would pass away shortly after.
Oh, wow, yeah, don't ever open on 3 knocks for the other thing I don't
Yeah.
I never open the door to is when someone goes, "Dot, dot, 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 dot." I'm like, "I'm not opening the door. Sorry, go
Yeah.
away. Stop being annoying." Because
That's
it's
just
always a
for
salesperson.
annoyance or yeah,
That's
yeah.
a salesperson every single time. "Bop, bop, 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 bop. Go away." That's what I like to say. Um, Another interesting thing, right? Especially for us religious folks, and you even saw some of it when we went to the Wildwood. If you
Mm,
remember when we got to the Wildwood, the first thing I did was introduce who he was to whatever may have been there. I
mhm.
basically set the rules of engagement. Hey, this is what you can do. This is what you're not allowed to do. And then we left. I even used things like holy water, right?
I know, I remember that.
I tried to get Nick to do it. Nick's like, it'll burn. I can't do it. It'll
No,
burn.
I'm not doing that. I'm on the bad guy's side.
That's right. Uh, the interesting thing that I found, and this goes back to that, is, we find comfort in things like religious objects. So, like,
Mhm.
if I was going into a place where I'm like, there is a demon in this place, like if old Bert goes, this is demon infested, and I know I'm taking
Right.
me a crucifix.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not Catholic, but if I was Catholic, I'd typically take like a rosary, right?
Right.
Now, interesting thing is when we covered the episode, I don't know if you remember this or not, or Roland Doe. So the story
Mhm.
that we told on that, if you remember, he had rosary beads, and these things
Oh,
were
yeah.
breaking the rosaries, and the beads would fly all over the floor and stuff. The interesting thing about this story
Mhm.
is the knocking really started happening a lot around religious items. So it would be beneath the crucifix or near the rosary. It was
Right.
almost like, hey, you got this stuff. We're not scared of this stuff.
Yeah. Or it's ticking it off, but it's
Right.
not afraid of it.
That could be
Yeah.
too. But it was also
Mhm.
those 3. So it'd be knock, knock, knock near a rosary or knock,
Right.
knock, knock near a crucifix.
Right. And you were also saying it's like the 3 is like a mockery
Mockery. Yeah, that's what the
as
theory
well.
is. Because what it
Yeah.
is when you look at, from religious experience, they typically say
Mhm.
God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost. So it's 3 in 1.
Right. I think the ancients were into like numerology quite a bit.
I know,
Like
right?
numbers had big significance.
Big time. I would
Yeah.
agree with that. Now there's also been a lot of things because we've talked about obviously the family with Janet and Jack, but I should also mention the parents that was living on the other side, which was John and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
They were not complete, and YouTubers get this wrong. They say that all the activity happened with Janet and Jack. No, it didn't. It was happening on the other
Yeah,
side too with the parents.
I was wondering what was happening with them at this while this was going on.
They were having things, but not to the same degree. So I won't say it's at the
Mm,
same degree, but they were having some hard pounding that was happening on the wall also. So this is
mm,
definitely a spot where they're like, okay, well, there's something to this. It's not just in one location; it's really in multiple spots. Um, there was another thing that Jack had talked about, and I'm trying to. This one I think is safe to say. He's in bed. When you're in bed, sometimes you don't wear a lot of clothing. Sometimes you
mm-hmm.
like to be cool when you're sleeping. Can't get too
Right.
hot. Can't get too hot in bed.
Yeah, you can't always wear your scratchy red
Yeah,
long johns with the butt flap,
can't
and
do that. So he's over there, and he's sleeping. He's over on his side, and all of a sudden he starts feeling Janet rubbing his shoulders, but it's kind of in a frisky way, is how we'll put it.
Hmm.
I think old Jack was like, okay, Janet, okay, girls are still asleep, okay. Turns around, Janet's facing the other direction, asleep. She's dead asleep.
Oh, time to become nervous.
Now, this is what I mean by we're going to have to hint around things. Now, this didn't escalate beyond that, but this is the first moment that something physical has happened.
Hmm.
So Jack has experienced the first potential. There's terminologies that I'll use. I think we're safe with these terminologies. There's things called incubuses, right? If
Yeah.
what was that video game with the incubus? What was it called? Why can't I think of it? The
Um,
old '90s. It's a Nintendo game. Kid
it was
Icarus.
the incubus. Oh, they had the incubus or the succubus.
Oh, maybe it was a succubus. I can't remember.
Yeah, incubus is the male one, succubus is the female one.
1,000%. It's going to be
Yeah.
extremely important in this story again. So we're going to put a pin right there. Boom. We got
All
a lot
right.
of pins going on. Okay.
Yeah, I
At
guess so.
this point, I've got some yarn I'm tying to it. We're going to be tying it to some other pins, but this is the first quote unquote potential succubus acknowledgement that's happening within the podcast.
Hmm.
But this is not where it ends, if that makes sense. Um, Now, another interesting thing, we talked about the TV that caught on fire, right?
Yep.
Like I say, wiring can happen. Things happen around a house. You got some wiring that's off, things can burst into flame. It's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
Jack's leaving one day and his car caught on fire.
Oh, that's not good. That's
That
an
is not good.
expensive thing to happen in the morning.
Exactly. And we talk about the expenses, right? We're like, why didn't they
Yeah.
just move? You have to remember, things are breaking. It's almost like when they would fix one thing, something else would break.
Right. And that seems to happen a lot in real life anyway.
Right. Happens a
That
lot.
keeps you poor. Keeps you
Yeah.
poor.
Because like right now, a great example right now, in my house,
Mm-hmm.
I need a brand new refrigerator. I need one.
Mm,
It
that's
works,
not cheap.
but the freaking drawers are breaking. And I swear they make those
Mm.
drawers to break and you can't buy duplicates. Do you know how much a drawer is? It's almost the price as the freaking refrigerator. So now you got Janet and Jack,
Rip off.
they're fixing this one thing and now there's another thing breaking. Same thing like my refrigerator. At some
Mm.
point, it's like, here's where all my money went. So he had this happen. And then we're going to jump to another, what I'm going to call an interesting thing that happened. So, Janet had mentioned that she had that basement situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now she's sitting in the house and she would start hearing things like, Mom. She'd look around, her kids weren't around her, but they sounded just like her kids.
Mm-hmm. This is definite mimicry behavior again.
Exactly. She would go to a different part of the house, completely different day that, whatever this is would give her time, but she would hear,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, honey, Jack wouldn't be home.
Mm-hmm.
But now all of a sudden, it's one of those things where you lean back and you go, It's trying to guide her. It's
Right.
trying to pull her into certain areas.
Yeah. What was happening in those other areas, you gotta wonder.
And here's the thing. She started getting kind of wise to it because she's like, Jack's not supposed to be home. My kids are not supposed to be home.
Mhm.
But whenever I hear this activity, a lot of times I think to myself, why would they do that? Because clearly they would know there's nobody there. But I think it's
Right.
just to see, can I get someone to do something even when
Right.
logically they should know?
Yeah, testing the limits of its power.
Exactly. So now the mimicking is it's a reoccurring thing and is happening quite often. YouTubers didn't talk
Mm,
about that a lot either, but in the
right.
interview, she talked about that a lot. And she said it
Mm,
really plays with your mind when you think you hear your name. And it happens to everyone, right? Like I watched
mhm.
the interview. Ed and Lorraine was talking about this haunting, and Ed says, "How many times do you think you hear your name? You look around, you go, okay, probably wasn't. Was that something that was mimicking, and you thought you heard your name, or was it just your imagination? You don't know."
Yeah. I find mostly that happens when you're out when people are speaking. If you're alone in the house, I don't have that happen very often.
I don't hear it very often, but there's been times where I could have swore. Here's a great example, right? Here's probably the best example I can ever think of in a million years. And again, it goes back to the Wildwood Sanitarium when we was there. I
Mhm.
did not hear a single solitary voice the entire time we were there. And everyone told me, you're
Right.
going to hear voices, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, cool. Like I was looking forward to it. I'm like, I hope I do.
Yeah.
I didn't hear a thing. But when we came back and reviewed the footage of that location,
Mhm.
the one that made my hair stand up on the back of my neck, Nick had went downstairs to get some pizza. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out on this, Nick. He was going down to get
Oh,
some
it's
pizza. He
well
was
known
hungry.
I love pizza.
Well, let's put it this way. We thought there was demonic activity happening inside the house. It was Nick's stomach. He was hungry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I told Nick, I'm like, dude, just take some time, go get some pizza downstairs. Jess and I was upstairs and we was talking about, we had a very amazing thing that was caught on video, which if you've not seen that, go back to our video. We captured I can't explain it any other way, a shadow figure of a child inside of a room passing by our cameras twice. We're not talking about
Setting off all the equipment along the way, by the way.
correct. All of our equipment was going wild when this was happening. We also have another video we've never released. I may have released it, but we only caught it in infrared. Our regular camera did not capture it.
Yeah, pointing the exact same way.
Same direction, same everything. So again, when you look at this kind of stuff, Jess and I are in the room by ourselves and we're talking about that moment. We're like, man, that's the wildest thing ever. I didn't hear a thing. Jess didn't hear a thing. When we reviewed that footage, I hear us talking near the
Mhm.
tape recorder, which is in another room across from us. In my voice, I hear it go, Jess, that's exactly what I say.
Mm.
And I heard it the first time and I go, wait a second. And then I rewind and I listen to it again and I go, that's my voice.
Mm.
Like that's my voice.
Yeah, that's how the mimics work. They only say things they've heard people say.
And it was so crazy. It was so crazy to me. It's one thing if you hear the story, but it's different. It's different. I
Mm.
promise you it's different when you hear it with your own ears and if you've heard your own voice being mimicked.
Mm.
And that was for me by far the most creepy experience. So now you have someone like Janet that's walking around a house. She's hearing her beloved family members calling to her. At a minimum, you're stopping and you're going, this doesn't make sense. Like if I'm Jess and I see me, and what's weird is, and a lot of people could say, oh, maybe it's just a recording that you heard or blah, blah, blah. It wasn't because we were talking and over top of our speech near the other microphone, you hear me talking.
Mm.
So it wouldn't
That's
have been me
freaky.
playing something. It wouldn't have been anything else. On the microphone near Jess and I, you don't hear a
Mhm.
thing. It was in that room and in that room only.
Specifically.
Correct.
Crazy. That is crazy.
Craziest thing ever. I played it for Jess and she goes, that is creepy. And I said, I know.
Oh yeah, we got a ton of audio stuff
So
on that
much.
trip. A ton.
Pages. And we've never really released that stuff. I didn't think people would be interested. Maybe they would. But think about it. It was just me, you, and Jess in that facility. What if we would have been on the third floor? She knew we were on the third floor because she can see the cameras. But then she would hear from another room something call her name.
Right.
Like, think about that
She'd
for a
been
minute.
gone.
Well, yeah, she would have been somewhere. I don't know where she should have jumped out the second floor window.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a wild thing to have happen. I think that might be one of the wildest phenomena. But anyway, I won't talk about mimics for 5 hours, but definitely a fascinating part of the story. Jack also talked about when they would be in their part of the duplex, they would hear some of the things happening over in John and Mary's side also, such as he would hear things like the toilet flushing by itself over there when he knew they weren't there.
Right.
He would hear the tank cover lifting and being put back down.
Interesting.
And the weird thing is, he would hear the knocking on the toilet over there also. So he would hear the porcelain being knocked on over there. And I find that weird. Like, why would it do that?
Yeah, what's the obsession with the toilets here?
I don't know. That's what makes it. Here's what I think. Again, I look at the bedroom and the bathroom as being vulnerable areas.
Yeah.
But think about it. You go into a bathroom. Think about how scary this is for just a moment. You run into a bathroom because you're like, what's that noise? And you know that porcelain sound is either the sink, shower, or it's the toilet. You walk in there and then the door, bam, slams closed.
Right.
Where are you going to go? That's the smallest room in the house.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what, if they really want to scare me, wait till I'm on the toilet and then bang on the toilet.
Yeah. That probably, listen, you would go to the bathroom a lot quicker, I bet.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That is a fact. Maybe it would help.
Another thing that I heard, especially when it was at the Hinsdale house, and maybe I heard about it at the Wildwood. I feel like I heard about it somewhere else. But objects were coming up missing in this haunting also. So it's like, it would be something like Jack's medical bracelet, Janet's earrings, Don's jacket, Heather's rosary, things like Mary's makeup, her jewelry, her spoons, canned food, slacks, towels.
Just anything you might be looking for, really.
Anything that was a part of someone's life.
Right.
Now, as objects was disappearing, Jack started wondering if somehow things were ending up, because they noticed things like scratching that was occurring up on top of the house. But, you know, I've had squirrels up there, you know, scratching happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he was noticing this scratching and some of this knocking that seemed to be coming from the roof and the chimney. And he goes up there and he finds a strange wetness where there should be nothing.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
And he also discovered that part of the chimney was breaking apart into sand.
Oh. Man, I wouldn't think it'd be that old.
No. And that's part of the things that didn't make sense. So when he was looking at some of these things, he's looking at, oh, you know, these things are disappearing. You know, it is what it is. But then on top of that, he's starting to notice little things because now he's like, okay, well, where's this stuff going? And then he goes up there and he notices this stuff. They would also find some of this stuff in places where it made absolutely no sense for them to reappear. And what they found was some of the stuff was ending up in the attic.
Oh, yeah, that would be rough to try and get that up there, especially if it was a kid doing it.
That's right. And it's one of those things where you go, okay, like, no one's going to take something up to an attic. But they said that it was never too far from an area where you would get to the attic. So it's not like it was taking it to the opposite end of the attic. But still, why would someone do that? It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Now, a very interesting part of the story, Jack's mom and aunt was starting to get a little ticked off. For anyone that doesn't know, Janet and Jack were devout Catholics. They were at church. They were very, very much into being as religious as possible. None of us is perfect, but they were pretty doggone good examples if we were talking about it. But his mom and his aunt was getting really mad. And the reason they was getting
about
mad,
this, or
no, because of course they lived in this duplex. Well, the walls aren't always super thick. You hear a little bit of everything.
right?
And what they noticed was Jack was kind of being a little bit of a jerk to Janet. Like he was cussing her out,
Oh, okay.
using foul language and becoming very belligerent.
Mm.
And when all this was happening, all of a sudden they would start hearing sounds that was occurring within the same time frame. So they honestly thought, okay, well, clearly they're fighting. And then they would hear like Jack and Janet from the other side would hear things like John and Mary talking.
Okay.
But what they found was one day they started hearing the argument between Jack and Janet going back and forth. John comes across because he's like, I'm not going to let my son talk to his wife like this, especially not with kids in the house. Goes across, they're all sitting. They're all sitting, chilling, relaxed. Wasn't happening at all.
I was wondering if that's where that was going.
Yes. So now, again, we're going back to these mimic things that are occurring. But this is all an escalation. You're like, why aren't you putting these into the same category? I'm doing this in chronological order so you can understand not only are these things happening, but they are getting more and more escalated. It started with Janet by herself, simple phrases. Now it's turning into full-on arguments.
It's learning how to mimic them better, I would say.
Correct. And even you and I talked about when we listened to the Wildwood audio. It sounds like there's a male and a female arguing on a cassette tape
violently
at like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Like no one was awake at that point in time.
No, definitely not. And I cannot believe, because it was from the same side of the house I was on, same side you were on, and I was a floor closer to it.
Exactly.
Like, didn't hear a peep.
Wildest thing ever. That's what I'm saying. There's something to all of this, and I don't know what it is. Now, you know, I talked about Shannon earlier, and I said Shannon got smacked in the face, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of moments where Jack and Janet would be by themselves, and they're kind of, you know, the kids are in bed, and one night they're kind of hanging out, and all of a sudden they hear bam, and then they hear this crying that starts happening. So they run to it, and what they hear is this sound is coming from like the stairway area. They get there, and there's Shannon at the bottom of the stairway crying. And they go to her, and they're like, what happened? She goes, I don't even know why I'm here. Now, a lot of people would go, well, maybe she was thrown down the stairs. Maybe she was walking to the stairs, fell down the stairs, whatever it may be.
Right.
She can't remember how she got there. And we don't know if she fell down the stairs, if she was levitated to the stairs. You're going to hear that a lot. Levitation's coming up too.
Yeah.
Put a pin in it, ma'am. But
so she don't even remember going near the stairs.
No. At all. She was in bed.
Interesting.
Now, the reason that I brought this story up is now we're getting to a place where it's kind of child danger, right? Child endangerment. Right. This haunting starting to escalate.
Oh, yeah. Rapidly at this point, it seems.
Very rapidly. Now, there was another story. I don't know if this is true. I found this in the writing, but Janet had mentioned walking into the kitchen at one point. When she walked into the kitchen, she felt like something was off. She couldn't quite figure out what it was. And all of a sudden, out the corner of her eye, she saw this thing. She looks over and she sees this dark shadow-like figure, but she almost described it as like a smoke. But it had the body of like a person.
Yeah, I've heard tales of this kind of entity kind of look.
You're about to get rattled.
Oh boy.
When she looked at the face had no defining features at all, but she knew it was looking at her. It started to walk near her. And as she was walking, she was looking at it just complete, like, what is this? Like, what is going on? And she noticed a flickering that was happening behind it.
Okay.
Later, she would describe that flickering as, I don't think that was flickering. I think it was a cape.
A cape.
She
Yeah,
said
that's
she thought it was like
interesting.
a cape. Now, this thing gets right up on top of her. We're talking like right up on her body. And she
Mm.
starts to cower down. And as she does it, it walks right through her and right into the front room.
Man, what kind of experience must that be? Like, did she describe feeling anything in particular, or
Nothing. But again, this was a story I found. It wasn't in the
right?
interview. So maybe she talked about it a little bit deeper. I don't know. But that was in some of the written stuff that I saw. The interesting thing is once she calmed down, because she was at the house by herself,
Mm-hmm.
she went into the front room, nothing there. Now she freaked out. So she runs to the other side of the duplex where Mary was. Supposedly she opened the door, ran in. She's looking around trying to figure out if that thing was in there. Now Mary I think it was the little bit before that, had been having some medical issues. She was basically recovering from a heart attack that she had. And when she
Mm.
started talking, Mary, before Janet could say a thing, said, I think I'm going crazy. Janet's like, what do you mean? She goes, I swear I just saw a man made of smoke walk into my room and just go through the wall.
The same thing.
So they saw the same exact thing, not at the same time, but of probably the same figure.
Right.
So
That'd be a difficult thing for two random people to dream up at the same time.
exactly. I don't know. It's one of those things. Now, another thing that Mary was really acknowledging was she would oftentimes smell something when she would see the shadow form figure. And she would always say it was like a toxic, like a gagging smell that would make her struggle to breathe. She also described the dark form moving near the bedroom and the bathrooms on her side.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. It's going to bedrooms and bathrooms on the
Right.
other side.
Right. They're getting an abnormal amount of visual presentations in this haunting.
Oh, we haven't even got to
Like
the good stuff yet.
abnormal.
We
Oh
haven't even
wow.
got to the good stuff yet. This is just the first stuff.
Right.
um, but the interesting thing is, I watched an interview with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Ed had mentioned something I had never heard before as a very interesting concept because he was talking about that foul smell, what this foul smell is.
Mhm.
And he says what happens is demons, when they do, so it's daytime, right? We always say, why does demon activity happen at nighttime
Mm.
always, right? You and I have talked about this. You know what he said?
Right.
They go to cemeteries and watch bodies rot through the day because there's nothing that they find more fascinating than watch one of God's creations rotting into the ground.
Man, that's demented.
It's demented. And he said the smell that people smell, that sulfur smell,
Yeah.
when they come back from cemeteries, that's the smell you're smelling, is that of dead bodies.
Man, that's wild. I've never heard anything like that before, but if I were to write a horror story,
Yeah.
I would definitely include that.
I heard that from Ed Warren himself explaining why.
That's an interesting take on that.
It
I
was.
find that fascinating.
I've never heard that before that moment. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
you know what? Kind of makes sense. I'm not saying that's what it
Yeah.
is, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So Ed and Lorraine Warren helped investigate this.
Big time for months. We
Really?
haven't quite got to that part yet, but yes,
Yeah.
they were a big
Okay.
part of this investigation. We're almost to that point. I'm kind of skipping through some stuff here. Like again, I'm
Okay.
trying to fit this as close to an hour as I can. I know we're going to go a little over. A big part of it is in the interview with with Lorraine and with both Jack and Janet. Jack talked
Mhm.
about a levitation that he had. He was a little bit tired and he just kind of wanted to relax one day. So he goes into the bedroom, he grabs a book and he starts reading the book, and he's kind of going and doing his own thing. And as he's doing his own thing, he's like, man, I feel really weird. Like, I don't understand what's going on. He starts looking around and he's levitating about 2 foot off the bed.
It's a weird way to wake up.
Weird way to wake up. So he starts freaking out. As soon as he freaks out, boom, he falls right down onto the bed. That was the potentially second moment ever that levitation would have occurred if we count Shannon's.
Right.
We don't
Which
know
seems likely.
We don't know how Shannon got there, but it's possibility is what I would say.
I mean, it could have been sleepwalking.
Yes.
But where we're in a house where a lot of things are occurring, it seems like levitation is not off the table.
Correct. So I would definitely put that in the interesting category. There was another point in time when they're in the bed. It's Janet and it's Jack, and they're kind of relaxing. They're chilling a little bit, and all of a sudden, Janet, by her legs, get grabbed and pulled off the bed. Now, as Jack's seeing this, he grabs her by the hand, and they're now doing a tug of war between Janet and whatever's on the other side until whatever it is finally gives up. Now, I should explain, because it's not going to make a lot of sense. I left part of this out. Let's just say Janet and Jack was doing some extracurricular activities before this. And what the thought process was, something possibly could have gotten mad by that. And that's why it did it.
Okay.
So they were in vulnerable spots, and then this is occurring. Now, as soon as whatever it was let go of Janet, and she was able to get back inside the wall, you hear bam, 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 like it's banging on the wall. It's mad.
It's real mad.
It's
real
mad. Correct. So it's kind of like, oh man, like this is a weird thing. Now, we talked about Ed and Lorraine a little bit. We've talked about it during this entire interview. They would show up because they were contacted by Janet and Jack. And you're probably like, why in the world would they call the duo of Ed and Lorraine Warren? It's because they had went to their church and explained all of this. And the church was like, hope you figure it out.
Yeah. I find that happens an exceptional amount of times.
Yes. And what's crazy is they explained everything that was happening. They were running out of ideas. The church was basically saying, and it was a Catholic church. They're part of the Catholic, faith. We talked about
this is their thing.
Exactly. Like all their kids are going there.
And blessings and stuff.
1,000%. And basically they're like, yeah, we want no part of this exorcism. And they kept going back like, we need help.
Right.
They wouldn't do it. So the only other person they could think to turn to, they had a little notoriety at this point, was Ed and Lorraine Warren. And the first time they visited, Lorraine said that they were contacted before Christmas to go over, but because it's Christmas, their first visit was January 17th of 1986. And we're back again on February 14th of 1986. This is what I like about Ed and Lorraine. They were very documented in what they did.
Right.
And this is the point where the family story kind of gets interpreted through more of a paranormal or like a religious lens is how I would put it.
Right. Because they thought it was full on demonic.
So it was interesting because Lorraine kind of looked at everything that was going on, and Lorraine herself said that she saw the equivalent of 4 spirits inside the home. Now, of the 4 spirits, now this did not come from Ed or Lorraine. This was wrote somewhere. You'll see it going around the circles a lot. I don't know that this is true, but what was said was that she saw an elderly woman, a young, violent female spirit, a mustached male spirit, put a pin on that, and a darker demonic force that was using the other 3 to do what it wanted.
Yeah, that's part I find particularly fascinating.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't think they'd have much power over one another. But if 3 are spirits and one's demonic, that could happen.
Correct. So it's kind of one of those things where you go, like that's wild. The other thing that was mentioned was that Ed and Lorraine at this point, they also had their Catholic background. They had a lot of opinions and what should done. And they were going to the church now going, listen, we are ourselves. You know what we do. We're in the public space. We're well known. Will you help us? And the head of the church, the first time they went there, said, I would love to help you, but I've got to talk to this couple about their upcoming wedding. Like that's where their values was. Wedding up here, someone suffering from potential demonic activity, good luck.
Yeah.
They would not help
one of
them.
them pays and one of them don't.
100%. So at this point, they weren't even helping Ed and Lorraine Warren out. It was basically like, hope you figure it out.
Yeah.
Things started to escalate once Ed and Lorraine Warren got there, such as scratches started to form on the body, as well as bite marks. And that was different people within the household. And then Ed and Lorraine's trying to help. They're going to the church. The family's like, we need help. Like, we can't live like this. We don't know what else to do. And there was one moment where the gravity of this more high-end part of this haunting really kind of took focus. And I'm going to use my wording very vaguely.
Okay.
Jack and Janet's laying in bed. It's late at night. It's about 2:00 in the morning. Jack wakes up because he feels like there's something there and he can't quite figure out what he's feeling, but it feels very weird to him. And he's looking around the room and he doesn't see anything. And all of a sudden he feels something crawling up on the bed. And he goes to look.
Not often a good feeling.
No. Because he knows Janet's right beside him. He can see her.
Right.
As he's in bed and he's feeling this, he establishes he can't move his body. So all he can do is move his eyes. He's basically in a form of almost like a sleep paralysis to a degree.
Yeah, I was just thinking being held down or pinned down or something.
Correct. As he's laying down, he's looking down, he sees a very old woman with milky white skin, white, disheveled hair. And he said it was a very old looking woman, but her body was that of a very young woman.
That's an interesting mix.
He called her the old hag. And the interesting thing he said was that she would smile and she was missing teeth. But of the teeth that was there, they were longer than normal and they looked almost like vampire teeth. Now, I'm not going to explain exactly what happened, but for imaginary purposes, let's just say that some would say that there could have been an affair that occurred that was one-sided.
Yeah. Just look up what a succubus do.
Exactly. Now, the interesting thing about this, and it kind of is a little demented, and again, I'm going to be very careful in how I phrase this, but sometimes in those moments of those things happening, some euphoric experiences can happen, right? He would say whenever these euphoric situations was happening for whatever this creature was that he couldn't control or stop, she would smile at him and let him know that she was having those moments and there was nothing he could do about it.
That's absolutely disturbing, even with the vague language.
Correct. The other interesting thing that he said was the body had scales on it. And the other parts that did not have scales had sores that had pus coming out of them, similar to what he would assume a leper would have had back in the Old Testament times.
Oh, I don't know if this could get much worse.
No. He said that once that moment had happened a few times, she just retreated off the bed and went to the darkness, and then he was able to move again. When he was able to move, he looked down on his body and he had a slimy substance on his body that he depicted as whatever those pus-sored things that was coming off her body would have been. So he said he went to the shower and scrubbed his body to the point to where it almost bled. Yeah. Because he was trying to get whatever that was off of him. Now, after that experience, he went to Janet and he's like, I'm going to be honest, this happened. And when he had that moment with her, she breaks down because she's like, this is too much. That's too much. It's too far. They call Ed and Lorraine back again and they're like, we cannot, this is getting worse. It's not getting better. We need your help. So
Right.
Ed had a good personal friend. Since the church wasn't doing anything for him, Ed
Mhm.
contacts Father Robert McKenna and said, I need you to help me exorcise this house. If the church isn't going to do it, I need someone that can do it. So Father Robert
So this is
McKenna,
an unsanctioned exorcism then, coming to
100%,
this point. Okay.
100%. In which he had already contacted Father Robert McKenna before,
Mm.
but there was like, okay, get here when you get here. But after that moment, it's like, I need you here like yesterday.
Yeah, get here now.
Correct. So they're going through this entire process. The father's on his way to get there. Now, as we all know, things can escalate. Their younger daughter is in the shower.
Hmm.
When she's in there, and again, a place of vulnerability, right? We had that moment that happened in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Now in the bathroom, while this, I think she was 16, she said she felt hands gripping around her arms almost in a forceful way. She said she was able to break away and then got out of the shower and fell on the floor and started crying, and everyone rushed to assist her. But now we're talking
Awful.
about there's no safe place in this house.
Right.
So, you've got this happening now. Just to speed through some of the stuff, because there's so much activity, I'm going to try to speed through some of it. Janet would end up seeing a mustached man. Remember how I said Lorraine had talked about
Yes.
a mustached man?
Yeah.
She saw a mustached man, but what's interesting was she saw him with horns coming out of his head. 2 horns, specifically.
Okay.
Would not be the only interesting thing that was seen. Jack, one evening, when I think he was laying in bed, he was somewhere, he saw an 8-foot man standing in the room. But when he looked really close, the man had a pig snout and bushy hair. And he said it was the most beast-like thing he'd ever seen. So this is escalating to the point to now they're seeing things that makes no sense.
Yeah, this is getting abnormal even for the supernatural.
Correct.
Like this is definitely danger territory.
Correct. And it only continues to escalate. Janet's laying on the couch one day. She's relaxing, and all of a sudden, she feels something grab a hold of the back of her neck. Now, she was laying on her back. She felt a hand grab her like this, for those of you that's listening to the podcast, reaching up through what it would have been the couch cushion to grab her by the back of the neck, and was trying to choke her from the inside of the couch.
Jeez.
Now, when this was happening, the dog Simon was on the floor, saw what was happening, jumped at whatever this was, went right through what it was, and landed on top of Janet. So now Janet's fighting the dog and this thing, and this is a German Shepherd.
Yeah. Clearly the dog didn't think that it was going to go through this thing either, so it's a little fooled by.
Correct. So again, it's looking
situation.
at things, and it's seeing things too. In my opinion, that's like an eyewitness account.
Right. Pretty close. Pretty close.
So the father gets there, Father McKenna. The first 2 exorcisms just flat out fail. And he said he knew they failed. There was nothing they could do.
Right.
At this point, the family shook up. We got all these things happening. These new apparitions are coming in. Things are becoming more violent. There's these things that's occurring from a place that we can't talk about. They're like, we need help. The only logical idea that Ed and Lorraine had, if this church isn't going to do anything and we can't get our father to help you, he's not strong enough. We need the Catholic Church, someone high in the Catholic Church, to come and rid whatever this is.
Right.
We need to go public.
Right.
We need to go public. We need to go to news stations. We need to go to whomever and tell this story to the point to where the church goes, okay, we know who this is. We need to make this go away. Let's just go and get it handled. So they start doing all these different tours. They're talking to reporters. The problem with that is, and we talked about a little bit with the Lindley Street haunting,
Mhm.
Now people start showing up because they're like, oh, there's a haunted
Right.
house. Like, we want to see what the haunted house is. So people's like climbing up in trees and trying to look into the house. And now it's a completely different set of problems.
Yeah, they had worldwide attention. They attracted 2 pretty famous people to
Yes,
the house. Did you hear about these?
I did just a little bit. Tell them who they are.
Well, I thought they'd have no problem at all because the first one was the most famous exorcist that has ever lived, I would say. Father Karras from the Exorcist movie, or rather, Jason Miller, who was not an exorcist, who
Mhm.
played him, showed up. And on all the other YouTube videos, they said that he thought that there was demonic activity there.
Yep.
But really, what he said is he doesn't really believe in the idea that this is a demonic haunting claim. But he said these people were legitimately terrified and something was distressing them. So he was a very good actor in a lot of different movies and stuff. I think he can tell when people are acting, and that wasn't his opinion.
Right.
Now, the other one, and I've talked about this guy before, the amazing Kreskin
Hmm.
went there and looked into it. And I don't think he would ever say something's demonic. He was a huge skeptic, and he simply suggested that they might have unresolved mental health problems,
Right.
which they did not like to hear, of course, in the situation they were in.
And there is a lot of skeptical stuff. There was some things that
Mhm.
was occurring from a medical diagnosis background.
Mm,
I would love to go through all of that. The problem is there's just not enough time. Like, this podcast is already
right.
running over a little bit, but there
Mhm.
was some medical stuff and there are some valid claims that he had made that
Yeah.
does make some sense. And honestly, I would
Mhm.
look into that. Like a prime example, Jack in 1983, he had brain surgery, just to go into a
Mm,
little bit of it. But he was having brain surgery from a standpoint of there was something that was pushing against the frontal lobe, which they say when that happens, it's not uncommon to visualize things that aren't really there
right.
and to hear things that's not really there either. You're basically
Yeah.
hallucinating.
But I would chance to say that it doesn't make your family members hallucinate and hear
Correct.
things also.
Correct. And that's really
So,
kind of where it comes in. There was
mm,
actually a very interesting story. This was in the interview. When things would get really out of hand, the family would
mhm,
like to leave the house
mhm.
and go camping.
Okay.
It was like their reset moment.
Mm,
So when all this stuff is happening, people starting to get the real bad things that's happening, they decide to go camping for a weekend. They lock up the house, they leave, they go to the campsite. Jack sets up a little fire. When they set up the fire, Jack looks over and he sees what appears to be a 14-year-old girl in the bushes looking at him, smiling.
mm.
Simon the dog was with him. He jumped up and started to go to alert, looking at the same exact bush.
Right.
The moment that that happens, she dissipates into the air. She just disappears. So Jack
Mm.
walks over to the bush, like, where does she go? As he gets there, she reappears vaguely and just a couple seconds later disappears back again.
Oh, that's interesting. They can't even escape it in the woods.
No. Now, the interesting part of this is later that night, the entire family heard what sounded like a younger girl
Mhm.
screaming for help in the forest all night long.
That's precisely the mimic behavior that we were talking about earlier from Legend.
Exactly. They went to find the girl and never found any case
Hmm.
at all of there being someone in that forest. Now, the interesting part of the story that I told you, hey, we're going to take a pin back out of the wall. This is one of the pins we're taking
Yep.
back out. So the neighbors, they hear that the entire family's leaving. They're going to the wilderness. From outside the house, they hear screaming inside the house. And the neighbors are like, what is going on? Like,
Hmm.
is everyone okay? So back then, they would go to their phone. They would
Oh, I remember rotary
those
phones.
old rotary phones, right? They would
Mhm.
call around the second or third ring. The phone picks up.
Oh, yes. I remember this pin.
And there's a girl on the other side of the phone that's laughing, but not a girl that they knew. Completely different
Mm.
voice. They've never heard this voice before. The neighbor goes, "Who is this?" Just laughing. "No, seriously, who is this?" Just more laughing, and then the phone disconnects.
That is creepy as F.
It
I don't
really
want to
is.
swear, but that is creepy.
It's creepy. Neighbor calls back again. They don't pick up the phone. The rest of the time, it happened that one time, never happened again. They heard the screaming, the phone call happened. While they were walking by the house, trying to figure out what's going on, they would see movement in the windows, but the entire family was out camping.
Wow.
So again, it wasn't just the family that was experiencing a lot of this stuff. It was happening to other people also. So there's some validity to that. I always look at,
Yeah.
I can say my house is haunted. You don't have to believe it, but if someone else sees things that's not associated with me and doesn't really care, could that possibly be why?
Yeah. A little bit more of a credible witness in that case.
Correct. So to kind of get this thing wrapped up a little bit, what ends up happening is they repeatedly try to get the house blessed. They're doing this stuff. They're trying their own version of the exorcisms. Nothing really happens. Now they have all these books and the TV shows that's coming out. You know, they're trying to get attention to this thing. Eventually, some no-name pastor father sees this stuff, contacts the Roman church, and for whatever reason, this no-name guy gets the blessing from the Roman church to do the exorcism on the house.
Wow.
Now, because all this stuff is on the media, people is praying profusely for this family in this house.
Right.
They go in, they do the exorcism, everything disappears. Now, interestingly enough, I'm only going to add this in because I'm going to be a little bit of a butthole on this. The moment that the exorcism sits, the same church that would not go to help the family brought them over some cookies to check in on them.
Thanks.
Exactly.
I'd just be like, all right, these better be the best cookies in the world.
So, long story short, that is basically the entire story. The movie, obviously, vastly different than the story that we told, but I really thought people would want to know the actual story of what supposedly happened. Again, I'm not saying the haunting happened. I'm not saying that everything was perfect. And in fact, some of the stuff I read online, but a lot of it came from the family, the stuff that we talked about today. I'm really dying to know what you guys think about a few different things. Mimic activity. I'm dying to know what you think this possibly could be. Do you think the family was faking it? And if they faked it, how did so many other people acknowledge these things that was happening that had no association with any of it? That's what I'm dying to know.
I want to know people's opinions on Ed Warren's theory about the smells associated with demons. I am amazed by that. I want to hear what other people think.
That one was really shocking. I should also mention that succubus moment happened more than one time, but I couldn't put that in there. It actually happened, according to Jack, 6 different times. And with Janet, with an incubus, I think 3 times, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's hard to cover that when you can't really say most of the things that you need to say about it.
We would get in trouble with YouTube big time.
Right.
And my mom would be like, "You're vulgar and nasty, you nasty person."
Yeah, we don't want that. We gotta keep her in our good graces.
So for anyone that doesn't know, around this time, right at the end of the podcast, we always open up some goodies. Did you get a goodie, Nick?
I did. It's the very last one, and I think I'm gonna regret it, but I've got Stranger Things one more time. They did have one more kicking around.
Stranger Things. Listen, because I was talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren and psychic abilities and stuff, I think it's my turn to go first this time. I think.
It is. It is.
So I'm going to use all of my psychic abilities. This box right here, I've got 4. And as you can see, I've opened up quite a plethora of different ones. This one is a gremlin. And I know that.
I know it's a gremlin.
It's my psychic abilities, Nick. A lot of people don't know this. I have psychic abilities. So as much as I would have loved to not, just kind of brag about that entire thing, here you go, everyone. For the first time ever, the gremlin. Welcome the gremlin to... Dang it!
Who is that?
That's your Megan 2.0.
Oh, it's Megan. Yeah. Well, I opened mine as you were opening yours, and I don't know how many of these things you got to buy to get them all, but I got my third Steve.
Steve is like Will for me on the Stranger Things boxes that I was doing.
I got 2 11s, 3 Steves, and 2 Demogorgons. And I bought a whole case and now 1 extra box.
Isn't that crazy?
So that's how they get you.
Well, hopefully you all enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also, tell your friends about us. Listen, we can't grow unless you help us get there. So help be part of our entire nation of paranormal fun. Until we see you in the next podcast, goodbye.
In the name of Jesus, I compel thee to subscribe.
Maybe that helped. Listen, we can only help.